Good evening, and welcome back to Aislin's Enchanted Path and to another episode of Pathways and Provocations, where we talk about the deep, the complicated, and yes, sometimes the controversial topics in modern paganism. Today we're diving into a hot one, the witchy aesthetic. You know what I mean. The black hats and the flowing sleeves, the moon jewelry, those black boots with a little extra kick, the satin cloaks, the pentacles on every surface. You know, the works. But what happens when looking the part, the cloths, the decor, overshadows the living of the path? What starts happening to your actual practice when you embrace the witchy aesthetic and forget the path of the witch? Let's talk about it. So first, let's define what we mean by witchy aesthetic. Think moody lighting, antique books everywhere, which I love, by the way. I am a big lover of antique books. But antique books on every surface, crystal balls and dripping candles, celestial prints, and a wardrobe that perhaps looks like Stevie Nicks met Morticia, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a gorgeous look, it's powerful, and for many, it's a way to embody their inner witch. I want to make it clear that I have no problems with that witchy aesthetic. We have all been there. I think most of us at least had a phase, and maybe that phase stuck. So I have no problem with it. How you dress and how you decorate your own space is entirely up to you. You should dress to express yourself. You really should. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being drawn to witchy visuals. Aesthetic is a language. It's an art. It can communicate mood, intent, and even spiritual identity. It is a way of defining yourself and the path you're on. But, and this is where the provocation part begins, what happens when aesthetic becomes everything? Well, then you might have a problem. It's easy to slip into the mindset that looking witchy is the same as being witchy. We've all seen the social media accounts, the beautiful altars, the curated spell kits, every witchy trend money can buy. We've all seen it. Some of us have wanted it for ourselves. Again, there's no shame in having nice things and enjoying visual beauty. I too enjoy beautiful things. But when witchcraft is reduced to how it looks on camera, we lose something essential. Something that we probably started with and lost along the way. Witchcraft, Wicca, and paganism is a practice. It's rooted in intention, discipline, introspection, connection with the natural world, and personal power. The craft isn't in the clothes. It's not the herbs or the candles. It's not the crystals or the pentacles or the crystal balls you have all over your living room. It's what you do with these tools, or what you do without them. How you show up energetically and spiritually in your practice. The clothing you wear or how you decorate your home doesn't define you or your practice. It doesn't even say very much about it at all. Or at least it shouldn't. But what happens when it does start to define you? What happens when it starts to become the entirety of your practice? Well, this is not uncommon, unfortunately, in those newer to the craft. Newcomers to the path often feel like they have to buy into the aesthetic to be taken seriously. And that can sometimes be the fault of those of us who have been practicing much longer. There certainly can be a little bit of gatekeeping going on by people who have been practicing for years against those newcomers. If you don't have a 30 crystal collection or an Instagram perfect altar, are you really a witch? This comes up a lot, especially at gatherings where the new and the old are mingling. The answer, of course, is you are still a witch if you don't have that picture perfect altar. But sometimes new practitioners can be made to feel less than, simply because they don't have all the stuff yet. But remember that you don't need all the stuff. The stuff doesn't define you. You don't need to spend a dime or fit into a specific visual mold in order to practice witchcraft, in order to embrace Wicca, in order to call yourself pagan. Real magic doesn't care if you bought an expensive cloak off Etsy or if you're wearing the hoodie you bought at Walmart 3 years ago. Real magic doesn't mind. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. The danger really is with the commercialization of spirituality. Everything's commercial these days. Everything. And when you commercialize your spirituality, you're taking it away from yourself. The pressure to look the part can push people into consumerism instead of into deeper practice. But worse than that, it can make people feel excluded when they don't or can't buy in. You absolutely need to make sure that you're not excluding people because they don't have the ability or the desire to buy the fancy cloak, to buy the 3 pentacles you think they should have. That's not magic. That's just stuff. It's stuff that a lot of us value, but ultimately it is still just stuff. So things really get a little bit tangled when we start talking about the gatekeeping that happens. Some people argue that focusing too much on the witchy aesthetic waters down the path. Others push back and say, this is how I express who I am, and who are you to say it's not valid? Honestly, both sides have a point. It's okay to want to protect the integrity of witchcraft as a spiritual and magical practice. But it's also okay for someone's identity as a witch to be reflected in how they present themselves or in how they decorate their home. The problem arises when one side tries to define witchcraft or magic for everyone else. That's gatekeeping. Gatekeeping has no place in Wicca and paganism. Saying someone isn't a real witch because they don't dress a certain way or don't dress that way, the way you want them to, isn't helpful. Just like magic itself, identity is personal and multifaceted. Instead of drawing hard lines, we need to ask better questions. Are we honoring the craft or just performing it? Are we welcoming newcomers and diverse expressions of witchcraft, or are we measuring their worth by their appearance? I'm not here to bash the aesthetic. Honestly, I love the vibe. I really do. I love a dramatic candlelight reading. I love black lace and moon earrings. In fact, what I wear now, often in my practice, is purple satin with black lace overlay. I love the look. I let my hair go gray because I think it looks the part. There's nothing wrong with the vibe. But I also practice in pajama pants. I think many of us have. I've done powerful spells barefoot in the garden with dirt all over my hands and on my cheeks. That's just as valid, maybe more so, because these things came from a place of spontaneity and true desire. Just because I sometimes practice like this doesn't mean that the practice when I'm in my pajamas, laying in my bed, isn't as valid. I don't have to be out here in order for it to be valid. I don't have to be wearing this. I don't have to have my tools laid before me. All practice is valid practice. And if you notice I'm getting distracted, that's primarily because my cat is wandering through. So the key is balance. If the aesthetic inspires you, then I love that for you, and I am so glad. I think that we should all find that which inspires us. Wear the hat. Wear the earrings. You want that pointed witchy hat? Get it. Everyone should have one if you want. Don't deny yourself because you think it's trite. If you want that look, embrace that look. But use it to support your practice, not replace it. So let's get right to the heart of it. The heart of the problem sometimes. Because yes, we've talked about gatekeeping. But what about in your own personal practice? Well, is the witchy aesthetic an expression of your path, or is it a distraction from it? The truth is, it depends. For some, dressing the part is empowering. It's how they claim their identity. It makes them feel confident, vibrant, connected, and visible in a world that often dismisses or even mocks pagan spirituality. So, for some people, clothing, decor, and ritual tools become sacred expressions, like wearing a devotional symbol or creating a magical atmosphere. This is a good thing. Anything that helps you embrace your path, to follow your path, is a good thing. But for some, especially for beginners, the aesthetic can distract from the real work. They might think they need the perfect tools or a beautiful altar or the right look before they can start practicing. That kind of perfectionism, that performance anxiety, it can actually stall your spiritual growth. Witchcraft, at its core, doesn't care what you wear. It cares that you show up. It cares that you ground yourself, that you practice, that you mean it. The aesthetic can amplify your practice, or it can mask the fact that you're not practicing at all. So ask yourself, is your aesthetic a reflection of your magic, or a replacement for it? If dressing the part has become the entire representation of your practice, it might be time to reevaluate that practice. So what do you think? Is the witchy aesthetic empowering or distracting? Or is it a little bit of both? Is it a gateway or a glamour spell that hides the deeper work? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts. Whether you're all into the vibe or whether you're on Team Sweatpants. Honestly, which side I'm on depends on the day and how much energy I had when I got up that morning. Sometimes we're not getting out of our pajamas, but we're still doing the work. Don't forget to tune in for the next episode of Pathways and Provocations. And until next time, walk your path with intention, not just style. Blessed be.